All right, a quick one. We'll talk about the budget and a few things around that. But of course, we got the news this morning. Standard Bank research team says it just issued a flash note this morning within the last hour or so, saying that the Moody's downgrade of Nigeria's sovereign issuer rating from B1 to B2 on Wednesday was is not, quote, not a cause for concern in our view, and that the rating action by Moody's, so we argue that the action is belated. And then what's the implications? Standard, the analyst says, we anticipate that material changes will be incorporated in the final alteration of the 2018 budget. Specifically, Standard Bank says they suspect the lawmakers will attempt to increase the oil price benchmark from $45 a barrel. We're going to ask Muda Yusufia what he thinks about the price of oil, especially if international crude oil prices remain stuck in a $58–62 a barrel handle. And a few other things are said there. But let's get this conversation going. Muda Yusuf is the Director General, effectively that we call the CEO of the largest chamber in Nigeria, the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. It's good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. You folks do a lot of wonderful job all the time analyzing the budget, looking at how it affects members. So you folks have companies and members who are on the ground employing people, going to the wharf, doing import and export. So every day you talk to these individuals. What's your view from your organization, the chamber, about the new budget proposal?
Well, two major components. There is the appropriation component, and there is the policy component. Appropriation is about how resources are allocated. And what we have seen in this budget, just as we have in the last budget, is that about 30.8% was appropriated for capital. My sense is that that should impact on the infrastructure, because what bothers the business sector most is the issue of the enabling environment. And infrastructure is a major component of that. So to the extent that there is some level of high emphasis on spending on infrastructure, on roads, on railways, waterways, on power, and the rest of them. So to that extent, I think we can say that, well, if it is implemented the way it has been proposed, because of course there are also risks to implementation of the budget. So we expect an impact from the infrastructure point of view, given the structure that you have now. Secondly, the timing. Now the president has talked about restoring the January to December budget cycle. If that happens, and if the National Assembly also concurs to that, that is good for planning. You'll be able to synchronize what is happening in the private sector, because most of the budgetary cycles in the private sector is January to December. So if you have that of the federal, also January to December, you have that of the states, January to December, it is good for alignment among all these key players in the economy. So that will also have a positive impact. Now, some of the concerns that we have seen, although we are still waiting for the details of the appropriation. You know, the oil marketers have complained about indebtedness to the tune of close to 800 billion.
Outstanding.
Outstanding. Arising from this subsidy thing and all of that. 800 billion is a lot of money. There is no mention of that in what the president has.
In the entire presentation.
In the entire presentation. And already, this is already having a big effect on players in that sector. I'm talking of oil marketers, depot owners, even the banks that finance them. A lot of issues arising from this indebtedness. I know that I think a few months ago there was a proposal to issue some bonds or something to be able to offset. Some promissory
notes, which the government has done. I think in the MTF somehow there is a little bit of a push forward of some of these promissory notes moving it forward. Yeah. It hasn't been cleared, again, as you rightly said. Yeah, the exchange rate template used was 128 naira or so to the dollar. We've since moved both 145 with now 300. Even the exchange rate for the budget is 305. Effectively on the street is 360.
Exactly.
So if we look at that, that looks like that discussion we need to come. We're going to have that discussion someday.
We should have it because, you know, this is also have to be appropriated for anyway. Not just for the 2017, even for 2018. For as long as the status quo is maintained as far as this petrol pricing and subsidy is concerned. Then there is the issue of the contractor arrears. Now, going by the reports that we have had, close to 1 trillion naira is owed to contractors. And each time we talk about the budget, the major component of debt service that features most prominently is the one that has to do with treasury bills and federal government bonds. Those ones are properly appropriated for. But when it comes to contractual areas, not much happens. Again, I know that there was a proposal at the Federal Executive Council to set aside close to 2 trillion to clear some of these debts,
the
backlog of contractual areas, pensioners, and so on. That is also a major issue that I expect that within the framework of the appropriation, that should feature, you know. So all these things have effect on the private sector. Then on the policy side, we have this issue of ease of doing business. Executive orders have been issued, but the level of compliance is still not satisfactory. I'll give you an example. There was a clear order from the presidency that any container that has been cleared from the ports should not be stopped by any customs officer.
Once it exits the gate.
Once it exits the gate.
The customs gate.
Yes, customs gate. But the compliance has not been there. In the last couple of months, I've had reports of containers. I mean, just look at the scenario. It takes you about 5 days to get your truck into the port.
Lagos port. To be
yes,
specific,
Lagos ports.
Which is the premier port.
It takes you maybe another 3 days to get out of the port. Then the moment you are stepping out of the port, you have some custom officials from the Federal Operations Unit waiting to accost you. That they have to go and re-examine the cargo. That there's an intelligence report or things like that. And sometimes when they take you to their yard, you could be there for under 1 week. And sometimes nothing is found. And in any case, once you have agencies of government, we are talking of agencies of personnel of the same agency. If the custom officials or the custom hierarchy do not trust those within the port, they should put people they trust.
Do not trust those who are in the long room.
Yes.
Call it that way. Because that's where